What's happening, guys? So I'm going to go over the questions that you guys gave me for this Q&A. I really appreciate everyone that reached out and asked questions. I really enjoy doing this stuff, so I'm glad that you guys had these questions and we can go over it. I'm going to do like I did last time, and I'm going to put a timestamp with the question in the description below, so you can kind of go to the questions that you want to hear, and you can skip the ones that you don't want to hear, so you don't have to waste a bunch of time. You can just jump around however you want. I might break this up into 2 videos depending on how long this gets. I don't like my videos to be much over about 10 minutes, but we'll just have to see. I have a tendency to get a little bit lengthy with some of these answers sometimes, so we'll just have to see how it goes, but bear with me. I'm just going to read right from my phone, so let's get to it. So, first question is from Anna, and she says, or asks, what particular foods do you eat pre-workout before you go for a heavy lifting session, and do you also allow yourself some sweets post-workout? So, first, I don't believe in any particular foods, all right? I don't believe in magic foods. There's nothing that's necessarily way better than something else. I just typically, for me, I actually lift around like 1:30 and I have a pretty lengthy drive to the gym. So really my pre-workout is typically lunch and my post-workout is dinner. So I'll eat somewhere around maybe 11:30, something higher carb. It might even just be a bowl of cereal with a protein shake. I don't know, but I usually try to get a decent amount of carbs in my system before I go to the gym. I'll lift, I'll take some BCAAs because I've got a long drive home. I just like to kind of cover the bases, and then I'll get home and I'll see my dinner. So it'll usually have a good protein source in it anyway. You usually have some carbs and it's gonna have everything you need. I don't believe in the anabolic window, quote unquote. You know, there's no magic foods, and I don't worry about sweets post-workout either. I mean, I'll eat sweets whenever I want to eat sweets. I just make sure it fits my numbers. So typically for me, that's actually usually later at night because I usually fill out my macros kind of throughout the day, and then whatever's left over, I just kind of have some quote-unquote fun foods at the end of the day. Typically I like to have some ice cream. I love ice cream, but you know, I don't worry about it. I'm all about flexible dieting. I love it. All right, this question is from Andrea Mendoza. What do you think a good at-home weight loss workout plan should consist of or focus on? Assuming you have weight training equipment at home, it really wouldn't be a whole lot different than anything at a gym, right? You're gonna work on a good resistance training program with a good periodization. Make sure you have overload. You're gonna work on progressive overload over time. You know, undulate your rep schemes. You know, have a heavy day, have a light day, and then track your macros. I mean, I know that's way oversimplifying things, but a plan for each individual is just that. It's very individualized, and it's a huge thing that goes into everybody's program. So I can't just kind of say general advice, do this, do that, because it's going to be so much different for every person based on their body, their history, and just everything else. So, but for me, a good weight loss program is going to be primarily focused on weight training. You want to make sure that you keep your calories as high as possible while still losing weight, and your cardio as low as possible while you're still losing weight. So that way, when you stall out and your body starts to adapt to what you're doing, you can make adjustments. Because if you start out super low calories, super high cardio, and you hit a plateau, what are you going to do? Are you going to just keep dropping them? Are you going to start eating like 600 calories a day? It's not very realistic. So the more you can eat and the less cardio you can do, the better options you have to get things going down the road, and just make sure you take it slow. There's no need to rush it. You're actually gonna do yourself more harm than good if you rush it. I typically wanna say somewhere around 1% or less per week, typically. Now that just, again, depends on each individual and their goals, but that's just a pretty good starting point for any kind of general weight loss program. All right, now this question is from StuperCow7, and I'm assuming he or she says, I'm moving from powerlifting training to bodybuilding, and I'm finding it more difficult to judge my progress. I'm used to just trying to move more weight, but that doesn't seem to be as big of a drive in bodybuilding. What else should I be looking at? Okay, now first let me say this. I'm not a bodybuilder. It's not my thing. So I don't have a great in-depth knowledge of bodybuilding. But what I will say is this. Strength is still a good indicator. I wouldn't give up on just looking at strength. Now, it's not going to be your primary focus like it used to be. It's not going to be all about your 1 rep max. But you know what? You know, a bigger muscle has the potential to be a stronger muscle, and vice versa. It's still progress. It's still a sign of overload. It's still a good thing. So you can still look at strength for progress. Obviously, body composition is going to be a big deal. You know, making sure you're actually building muscle. and it just depends on what phase you're in. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more subjective than powerlifting. Powerlifting is pretty simple. Weight's going up. I know I'm progressing. Bodybuilding is not quite the same. So you're just gonna have to find a way to make it a little bit more fun for yourself and not focus so much on the actual results itself and just enjoying the process. You know what I mean? So if you enjoy what you do, if you enjoy the process, if you enjoy everything that you do with your training, you're gonna get good results. But if you're only focused on the actual end results all the time, it's not gonna be very much fun, and you're probably gonna get worse results because of it. So I know that's kind of a generic answer, but sorry, that's the best I can do for you. Okay, next question comes from Chris Sharp. Says, bench press is the weak area for me. I'm really trying to build it up. Squats and deads are moving slowly up. For a natural lifter, would you say it's better to grind out the last couple reps for bench on the last few sets, or stay with the weight that moves smoothly? I flat bench twice a week and normally do 3 to 5 sets of 4 to 6 reps. Twice a week, 3. Okay, so first thing I want to say is, if you're doing the exact same rep scheme twice a week, I would change that up. I would start undulating them a little bit more. I would do something kind of higher rep and then something lower rep. And actually, you could even do a 3 undulating pattern and just make your microcycle like 10 days or whatever. So you could do your high day on like the beginning of the week, and at the end of the week you do a medium day, and at the beginning of the week, the next week, you could do your heavy day, which I would actually prefer to do that typically, but that's not really your question. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't recommend doing the exact same rep scheme all the time. You stall out really fast that way. Now, as for your question of should you be grinding out the last couple reps, typically, especially for a powerlifter, I would say no. You want to stay away from grinding reps as much as possible. It beats you down, and even if it's at the end of your session, it still has a carryover effect. It's still that fatigue's gonna build up, and your subsequent sessions throughout the week are gonna be worse because of it, and you just wanna control that fatigue. So I really preach working sub-maximally, leaving a couple reps in the tank, and not working too hard. Now there's a time and a place for it, don't get me wrong. And especially with like AMRAPs, if you're doing testing with AMRAPs, you're probably gonna get a little bit close to grinding, but an AMRAP doesn't mean, take it all the way to failure and beating yourself to a pulp. It's more about just getting a gauge for appropriate progression and testing your actual strength so you know how to progress from there. So, long-winded short answer is no, stay away from grinding. All right, next question comes from Tom Shufflebottom Fitness, and he asks, in terms of benching, do you feel more arch is always better? It seems like some guys swear by the arch, but others put up huge numbers with little or no arch. Okay, I would say no, more arch is not always better. But with that being said, more arch means a shorter range of motion. It typically puts you in a more advantageous position mechanically, but you know what? Some people just do better without it. Whatever you can lift with is gonna be better. Now there's definitely advantages to getting a bigger arch, like I said, but if you find yourself stronger, or if you find that you get hurt with an arch, or if you're trying to force too much arch and you're hurting your back because of it, some people can do it, some people can't. I would recommend most people get away with as much arch as they can comfortably get away with, but not necessarily try to kill yourself. Now, I'm not saying that's the absolute be all end all. You certainly want to make sure you're staying plenty tight, and the arch is going to do that for you, but some people are just going to be stronger without it, and that's fine. Okay, next question comes from Average Joe, and he asks, is GPP training, which if you don't know, that stands for General Physical Preparedness, for squats even possible? If yes, what exercises would you recommend? So I actually asked him for a little bit of clarification on that, because that's kind of a broad term. It can mean a lot of different things. And basically he just said, I guess, can you say to improve strength performance on the squat? So I kind of breaking that down to, okay, are there different accessory lifts that you can do that would be better to help bring up your squat? And that's a pretty loaded question, because once again, like always, it's very individual. Like always, it depends. I feel like I'm always saying it depends all the time now, anytime anybody asks me a question. But for me, I'm a big believer in specificity, and if you want to get better at something, you do it. So I'm a big believer in doing the actual movement. If you want to get better at squatting, you squat, okay? And I feel like a lot of people make mistakes of trying to correct what they consider to be underdeveloped areas of their lift to kind of fix kind of weak portions of their lift, but typically it's actually because they have movement pattern problems with the lift. They have technique issues, and that's why their lift isn't as good as it should be. And trying to strengthen different muscles to fix this weak area isn't going to fix it at all. It's a motor pattern issue. You know, you got to learn how to do the squat properly. So the best thing you can do to really improve your squat is to focus on technique and get better at the actual squat itself, and just squat more often. Now, of course, you can't just go out there and just do as much squatting as you could ever dream of. You know, you gotta appropriately progress your volume with the squat, but I really believe if you want to get better at squatting, you squat. Now, that's not to say you can't do any accessory movement. That doesn't mean there's no place for things like front squats and lunges and whatever else you can think of. And certainly as you get more advanced and you've been doing this a long time and you actually learn that you do have certain weaknesses, then yes, whatever your weakness is, it's a good idea to do some accessory work to bring up those weaknesses. But if you can't even understand what that is or why it is, then you're just kind of shooting in the dark and it's not going to do a whole lot of good. So, you know, the short answer is yes, there's things you can do, but it really depends. And overall, I'm a big believer in just doing the main movements more frequently and then, you know, doing accessory work with other things. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, just shoot me a message or reply in the comments below and we can talk some more about it. All right, my man Brian with SDS Powerlifting asks, why do you think some people feel better eating beef over chicken and vice versa? I don't know. How's that for an answer? You know what? I'll take a shot in the dark at this. Okay, let's say people are not tracking their macros and they eat more beef than they do chicken and they feel better that way. Well, maybe their diet was lower in fats and maybe they perform better on fats. Some people do better with more fats, some people do better with more carbs. Everyone's different. Each and every body is unique. So it takes a lot of time of tracking and kind of getting to know your body and to see how you perform better. But if one food choice is giving you more of a macro that makes you perform better or maybe brings you more calories to perform better, right? There's more calories in beef than there is chicken. If you're getting more calories that way, or if you're getting more fat that you would normally be, you know, missing in your other diet, that could be part of it. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Now, if you're actually tracking your macros and you're hitting your numbers the same regardless if you're eating chicken or beef, probably not going to be much of a difference, I wouldn't think. But you know what? Everyone's different and sometimes it is what it is. All right, Sean McLaren Powerlifting asks, Colin, are you going to Raw Nationals? If not, what are your goals for 2016 in powerlifting? That's still up in the air. I'm about 80-90% sure I'm not doing Nationals now. I mean, I still have a couple weeks till I see my doctor and then I want to know when I'm going to be back and how hard I can go when I get back before I make that final decision. At this point, I'm definitely leaning on not doing it because I've been out for pretty much 3 months at that point, and then I'll have 12 weeks to train into nationals if I can start training that day when I see him, which there's no guarantees I'll be able to. So I don't think for my long-term benefit it would be smart. Now, I could do it, and I'm sure as hell not afraid of the work. I mean, that's the thing that frustrates me about this whole situation with me, with this time off and everything that I've been forced to take, is it is not about doing the work with me. Like, I will do the work. I don't miss sessions. I love it. I love this stuff. So I will do the work. I will do whatever is necessary to do it. But is it smart to do that? You know, is it smart to have all that time off and then go right into an intensity block almost right away? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's very smart. But I'm not counting it out yet, but at this point, if I was forced, somebody had a gun to my head and said, make a decision, I would say, no, I'm not gonna do it, but we'll just have to see. And if I don't do it, what my goals will be, you know what, I might even go to just a little bit of a surplus. You know, I'll probably stay around maintenance when I first get back in and just kind of get the strength back up and get things going. And then, you know what, I might go through a small building phase because I'm gonna have a whole year to go through training now to get to 2017 Nationals. So, you know what, I would like to be bigger anyway. I'd like to put on some size and that would help me get stronger. So I wouldn't do anything crazy. It would be a very small surplus and I would take things slow, and I wouldn't want to get above much more than maybe about 190 because I don't want to go through a big cut again. But that was probably what I would do if I don't go through with Nationals. Thank you. Good question.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. Every minute, every day I've been craving.